our thought about this week's Zohar. This part of the Zohar talks about a person going into a different level. The Kabbalah talks about a person gradually ascending up on the spiritual hierarchies from Kabbalistic tree to Kabbalistic tree. And here it speaks about Moses complaining. Ever since God spoke to Moses and Moses took on the mission to lead the people out of Egypt, the Jewish people have suffered more. The Jewish people have had their burdens increased. That Pharaoh was not willing to offer straw, where in the past they had straw and had a single standard. Now they had to meet that standard with even fewer resources. They were taxed tremendously under physical labor. And here Moses is complaining, even though on our level it would seem like he is complaining on a much higher level. He's complaining on behalf of the Jewish people. And so it says, "Come and see, God spoke to Moses, decree of judgment looming over him. What is written above?" Moses returned to God and said, "God, my Lord," spelled Aleph, Dalet, Nun, Yod. See the boldness of Moses. At the beginning of his prophesying, he was dissatisfied with his place and said, "God, why have you done evil to this people? Why did you send me? Ever since I came to Pharaoh to speak in your name, he has done evil to this people, and you surely have not rescued your people. Who would speak like this?" But Moses knew that another higher rung awaited him. Rabbi Yitzchak said, "At first, when the house was given to him, he commanded it like a man commanding his household, saying whatever he wishes without fear. Similarly, Moses spoke to his house without fear." So the analogy is given that Moses' current standing is like a person being given a new house. And so he's behaving in a way that's perhaps unfamiliar to the surroundings, and he seems to be acting with a holy kind of impudence. At first, when the house was given to him, he commanded it like a man commanding his household and saying whatever he wishes without fear. This is like a man commanding his household with children, and mostly children. I don't know if women have to be commanded. I think oftentimes it's the woman commanding the household. But if we imagine a traditional family, a man is commanding the entire household. He has much more lateral power. Doing that to the Almighty would be impudent, it would be arrogant. God spoke to Moses, decree of judgment. So Vai'era spoke, Vai'era, he said to him, another rung of compassion. Now, it's not to say that we understand Moses or that he is, in fact, arrogant. But prima facie, this is what may seem to us. At our much subdued level, much more dimmed level of light, all is linked as one judgment and compassion. As is written, he said to him, "I am God." Rabbi Yossi said, if there were written, God spoke to Moses, "I am God," then I would agree. But rather it is written, first Elohim, which denotes God's aspect of judgment, spoke to Moses. And he then said to him, "I am God," implying rung after rung. Rabbi Yossi said, if Moses had not been master of the house, husband of Elohim, he would have been punished for what he said. But in fact, he was the master. Since he was not punished. This can be compared to a man who fell into a quarrel with his wife and had words with her. She started to complain. As soon as she began to speak, the king appeared and took up the word. She turned silent and stopped talking. The king said to him, "Don't you know that I am king, and you have spoken these words in my presence?" It's not clear who the woman is. Is the woman Bnei Israel, the Jewish people, or is the woman God, Elohim, the aspect of judgment? Similarly, as it were, with Moses returned to God and said, "My Lord, why have you done evil to this people?" Immediately God spoke to Moses, starting to complain, and immediately the king took up the word. He said to him, "I am God. Do you not know that I am king, that you have spoken these words in my presence?" Well, it's very clear that Moses is in fact the woman. God spoke up. God is like the king. He starts to reprimand the unnecessary complaints. I appeared to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob as El Shaddai. Why did he change the name here from those before? Well, this can be compared to a king who had an unmarried daughter and also had a beloved friend. When the king wanted to speak with that friend, he would send his daughter to speak with him, speaking with him through his daughter. The time came for his daughter to be married. On her wedding day, the king said, "From now on, call my daughter Highness of Wisdom Matronita. Until now, I spoke through her to whomever I spoke. From now on, I will tell her husband, and he will know whomever is necessary." So this is as if God's presence is analogized into two separate components. One is the daughter, and one is the father-in-law. And the Jewish people here is the husband. And in this case, the husband seems to be in a pickle. Some days later, her husband had words with her in the presence of the king. Before she could answer, the king took up the word, saying to him, "Am I not the king with whom until this day no person has spoken, except through my daughter? While her name was such and such, when she was still unmarried, and you, I have given you my daughter and spoken with you openly, something I have done for no one else." So until today, the king had spoken through the daughter. And it is almost as if the husband forgets that the original speaker is the king. Similarly, I appeared to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob as El Shaddai. When she was in my house, not yet married, they did not speak with me face to face, as I have done with you. Yet at the beginning of your words have spoken to my daughter in my presence words such as these. Therefore I appeared to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob as El Shaddai. But by my name, Yud-Ke Vav-Ke, I was not known to them. Speaking with them on the rung, I have spoken with you. So the original level of the father speaking to the husband is to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, who also happen to be known as the forefathers of Israel, the Avos of Israel. They did not speak with me face to face, as I have done with you. Yes, sorry, the father spoke to these fathers through the intermediary, the daughter. That was good enough. Yet you at the beginning of your words have spoken to my daughter in my presence words such as these. Surely these are words of rebuke, and Moses seems to be rebuked for his, well, is it impudence? He seems to have forgotten that the original source is Yud-Ke Vav-Ke, or perhaps the more original source. El Shaddai here is the daughter, and Yud-Ke Vav-Ke is the father. Speaking with them on the rung, I have spoken with you. It's a much more intimate level, but he doesn't recognize that there is a greater presence at work, and this greater presence seems to be demanding a greater level of awe, kind of fear, and the fear of God is interpreted in many ways. It's something I've been contemplating of late. Some people say simply awe. It's awe of something much greater than us. Yes, but I think we can understand it quite simply with how people usually understand God, or understand fear in terms of hierarchy, in terms of maybe a supervisor, maybe a person with more power like father and mother, and other kinds of powers that are common in today's society, like whites and males and cisgender people, and so on, heterosexuals and so on. There is more relative power when it comes to these people. So in that sense, we can understand that for those who don't have these kinds of powers, they feel a kind of fear towards those who have this kind of power. And perhaps this kind of power is related to the power of God, that God demands us to answer our callings, to go into perhaps places that are far-flung according to our imagination of what our lives may be like. And in so doing, there is love and there is fear.